New York City, the city of dreams, a melting pot of cultures where aspirations merge with harsh realities, where the supernatural and the normal dance on the fine line between the unbelievable and the ordinary. This is where our story begins and where I encountered the unimaginable. I'm an investigative journalist, an average New Yorker, spending my days chasing leads, unveiling the truth beneath the surface. One rainy evening, I received an anonymous tip about a peculiar restaurant on the outskirts of the city. Pishcha, food of the gods. An unusual name. More unusual was its claim. They served the dishes of the gods. A peculiar tagline. But a story was a story, and this smelled like a good one. Arriving at the restaurant the next evening, it was unassuming, with a dimly lit sign that flickered intermittently, casting long ominous shadows down the alley. Inside, the restaurant was unexpectedly opulent, glistening with golden accents and majestic murals of mythical deities, enjoying a feast. I was welcomed by the owner, an enigmatic man named Thanos. He was a large figure with an intensity that was both alluring and unnerving. His eyes held a subtle glint of something I couldn't quite identify, perhaps madness, perhaps genius, or maybe a bit of both. For a few nights, I observed, dined, and conversed with the patrons, each of whom had their unique tale of transformation. The dish they ordered from the menu of the gods had changed their lives. A failing musician became a sensation overnight after ordering Apollo's lyre. A teetering businesswoman secured $1 million deal after consuming Athena's wisdom. It was fascinating but unnerving. The prices for these godly dishes weren't listed in dollars, but rather in what you value the most. A vague term, it was intriguing enough to keep me returning, to unveil what was beneath the surface of this mysterious establishment. I introduced myself to the patrons. 3 stood out: Rachel, a lawyer; James, a doctor; and Sarah, an artist. They were regulars, their lives transformed after they tasted the divine dishes. Rachel gained tremendous success in her trials. James performed miraculous surgeries, and Sarah's art started selling like hotcakes, all after their divine meals. They were all remarkably happy, or so it seemed. But as I dug deeper, I started noticing a disconcerting pattern. Rachel was losing her family. They couldn't comprehend her sudden obsession with winning cases, regardless of their morality. James was growing increasingly distant, obsessed with his miraculous medical triumphs, disregarding his own health. Sarah, she became a loner. Her paintings, once vibrant, were slowly turning grim. I saw the price they paid for their success, their most valued relationships, and health. Perhaps the restaurant was not just serving food, but it was trading dreams for lives, or so I thought. The story was turning darker, more dangerous, and I decided to dig deeper. The more I discovered, the more my journalistic instincts screamed that this was no ordinary restaurant. It was the beginning of an odyssey that would shake my reality. I just didn't know it yet. As I spent more time at Pishcha, I felt a palpable sense of unease. It wasn't just the vague prices or the strange, life-altering success of its patrons. It was the unsettling feeling that things were spiraling beyond what was rational or explainable. But as an investigative journalist, I was driven by the need to expose the truth, no matter how horrifying it might be. The restaurant was a place of contradictions. It glowed with a warm, inviting atmosphere, yet held a chilling secret at its core. The laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, but underneath, there was a sense of dread that refused to dissipate. Even Thanos, the owner, was a paradox, charming and captivating, yet there was a sinister edge to him that made my skin crawl. One evening, as the restaurant was closing, I decided to sneak into the kitchen. If the dishes held the secret to the restaurant's power, then the kitchen was the heart of this operation. I managed to dodge the staff, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with thoughts of what I might find. I expected exotic ingredients, strange rituals, or maybe illegal substances. What I found was far more alarming. The kitchen was immaculate. The polished counters gleamed under the overhead lights, and everything was in its place. But what caught my eye was a large, ornate book, the cookbook as Thanos referred to it when I questioned him later. It was filled with recipes, but not ordinary ones. Each was attributed to a different deity, and had the price mentioned, not in terms of money, but emotions, relationships, health, the intangibles. That's when it hit me. The patrons weren't paying with their money. They were trading their most treasured aspects of life. The divine dish wasn't just a metaphor, it was a Faustian pact, a deal with the devil, or in this case, the gods. My mind spun with questions. How is this possible? Were these actual gods? Was Thanos some kind of a mystical entity? I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, a cold dread spreading through my veins. Over the next few days, I observed the change in Rachel, James, and Sarah. Their initial euphoria faded, replaced by a hollow emptiness. Their eyes were haunted, their smiles forced. The price of their success was far greater than they had anticipated. Their lives, once filled with love and joy, were now overshadowed by the success they had so desperately sought. The more I observed, the more a sense of urgency grew in me. I needed to expose this place, but I also knew I needed concrete evidence, something that could not be dismissed as mere conjecture. And that's when I decided to do something I knew was dangerous. I decided to order a dish from the menu of the gods to experience firsthand what it entailed. But first, I needed to figure out how to protect myself from the insidious price it demanded. The stakes were high, but so was the need to unmask the chilling reality of Pishcha Baga. I was in it too deep to back out now. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. I ordered the writer's quill from the menu of the gods said to be Hermes' dish. According to myth, he was the messenger of the gods, and the patron of literature and eloquence. As I prepared myself to taste the dish, my heart pounded in my chest. I had a plan. To counterbalance the effects of the dish, I had decided to give up my apartment, a place that no longer held any significance to me. I thought that might be my most valuable possession I was ready to give away. The dish arrived, a delicacy that looked almost too ethereal to consume. As I took the first bite, a wave of intense flavor washed over me, followed by a surreal calm. It felt as if time had slowed down, my senses heightened. I could hear the softest whispers, see the most minute details, and my mind, it was brimming with stories waiting to be penned down. The sensation was invigorating, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. That night, I wrote like never before. Stories poured out of me as if a dam had broken, each word flowing seamlessly into the next. My articles had never been so captivating, so articulate, so influential. I was on top of the world, yet deep down, I felt an inexplicable fear. Days turned into weeks. My work gained recognition. My stories became the talk of the town. But the unease grew. I started seeing shadows where there were none, hearing whispers in the silence. My dreams were invaded by images of the gods, their laughter echoing in my ears. I had paid the price, and now I was living the repercussions. One morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar place. My apartment was gone. I was homeless, just as I had planned. But something was off. My stories, my words, they started to elude me. My articles lost their charm. I felt like I was losing myself to something I couldn't comprehend. Meanwhile, Rachel, James, and Sarah were deteriorating faster than I had anticipated. Rachel was disbarred. Her obsession with winning cases had turned into unethical practices. James's health was failing. He had been diagnosed with an incurable disease. Sarah, her vibrant art had turned into grotesque images, her patrons abandoning her. I realized I was wrong. The dishes from Pishcha Baga didn't just take what you considered your most valuable possession. They took what you loved most, even if you weren't aware of it. For me, it was my words, my ability to tell stories. For Rachel, it was her integrity. For James, his health. And for Sarah, her passion for creating beautiful art. A dread-filled realization hit me. I wasn't just losing my words, my essence, I was losing my sanity. The chilling laughter of the gods haunted my every waking moment, their spectral figures a constant vision. The divine meal had turned into a curse, a terrifying ordeal. But it wasn't the end. I had started this journey, and I was going to end it. I had to bring down Pishcha Baga, Thanos, and save others from suffering the same fate. My once thriving career was in ruins. My writing, once my salvation, now seemed more like an alien language. But I had bigger problems. I was slowly being tormented by unseen forces, my sanity hanging by a thread. Yet, the investigative journalist in me was not ready to back down. With every ounce of determination, I confronted Thanos. His large frame towered over me, and his dark eyes met mine with a cold, sinister gaze. I accused him of trickery, of exploiting innocent people. I told him I knew about the true nature of the divine dishes and the horrifying prices they extracted. At first, he feigned ignorance, dismissing my claims as ludicrous. But as I grew more vehement, his demeanor changed. His laughter echoed through the empty restaurant, sending chills down my spine. He confessed that indeed, the divine dishes were not of this world. They were a bargain, a pact, but he denied any wrongdoing. He claimed that the patrons chose their dishes, and they paid the price willingly. In his twisted mindset, he was merely a facilitator, providing a service to those desperate enough to trade anything for success. I threatened to expose him, to bring the law down on this perverse operation, but his response was a dismissive laugh. No one would believe such an outlandish story, he argued, and if they did, it would only draw more patrons, those intrigued by the possibility of achieving their wildest dreams, no matter the cost. Frustrated and helpless, I turned to Rachel, James, and Sarah. I shared my findings, my experiences, my fears. Their initial reaction was one of disbelief, but as they took in the stark reality of their condition, their defenses crumbled. They too had been tormented by their divine dishes. They were caught in a nightmare they could not escape. United by our shared plight, we devised a plan to expose Pishchabogov. It was a desperate plan, one that could potentially worsen our conditions, but it was a risk we were willing to take. We decided to publicize our experiences, share our stories, and expose Thanos and his cursed restaurant to the world. It was a dangerous game we were playing, but the stakes were too high. The four of us, a once successful lawyer, doctor, artist, and journalist, now mere shells of our former selves, were going to fight back. We were going to reclaim our lives from the grips of the gods. But, as we would soon discover, the gods do not take kindly to their pacts being broken. As we prepared for the daunting task ahead, we braced ourselves for the wrath of the divine. Little did we know, the worst was yet to come. Our story spread like wildfire. Articles, blogs, vlogs, interviews. We told our story everywhere we could. People were skeptical at first, then curious, then horrified. The idea of a restaurant serving divine dishes in exchange for people's most cherished parts of their lives was chilling. The narrative drew attention, and the publicity put Pishchabogov in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. Thanos was livid. He threatened us, berated us, even attempted to discredit us. But we stood our ground. We were already living a nightmare. His threats were of little consequence. However, our nightmares were about to turn darker. Every night, the spectral figures of the gods became more vivid, their laughter louder. We were tormented by relentless nightmares, our waking hours filled with dread. We were paying the price for breaking our pacts, but we knew we had to persist. As the weeks wore on, something strange began to happen. Other patrons of Pishchabogov started coming forward, sharing their stories similar to ours. They too had traded something precious for a taste of the divine dishes, and had been living their nightmares since. Our fight was no longer just our own. It had become a beacon of hope for all those tormented by their divine pacts. Our story caught the attention of legal authorities. Thanos and Pishchabogov were under investigation. While there was no concrete law against serving divine dishes, the mental and emotional torment the patrons had undergone could not be ignored. But just when it seemed like we were making progress, things took a turn for the worse. One evening, Rachel was found in her apartment, lifeless. There were no signs of struggle or foul play. It was as if she had simply given up on life. A few days later, James collapsed in the middle of the street. His health had deteriorated to a point where his body couldn't cope anymore. His eyes held a vacant look, his once robust frame now gaunt and frail. The horrifying reality hit us. We were not just fighting Thanos and his restaurant, we were fighting against the divine wrath. If we were to win this battle, we had to find a way to break our pacts without losing our lives in the process. But the clock was ticking, and we were running out of time. As I looked at Sarah, her face pale, her spirit flickering, I knew we were in the end game. We had to defeat Thanos and the gods or be consumed by the curse of the divine dishes. Sarah and I were the last ones standing. We were weak, haunted, but not broken. Not yet. We held on to each other, drawing strength from our shared plight. We pored over mythologies, seeking a way to break our divine pacts, while the world watched our fight with bated breath. Then, one night, in a moment of desperation, I found a possible solution. An ancient myth suggested that divine pacts could be broken by offering the gods a sacrifice of equal or greater value. But what could be more valuable than the very essence of our beings? What could possibly satiate the gods? The answer came in a form I never expected. Our story of defiance, resilience, our fight against the divine. With renewed vigor, we intensified our campaign. We shared every detail, every torment, every moment of despair. The world was moved by our story. People rallied around us, expressing their support and admiration. Our story was their story. It was the story of humanity's struggle against insurmountable odds. Meanwhile, the legal pressure on Thanos and Pishchabagov mounted. Unable to bear the scrutiny, Thanos disappeared one night, leaving behind his restaurant and the cursed divine cookbook. The authorities seized the restaurant and the book, assuring us and the public that no one else would fall prey to the divine pacts. Sarah and I woke up one morning to find the spectral figures of the gods standing before us, not in torment, but seemingly in admiration. They confessed that our story, our fight had moved them. Our determination, our resilience was a testament to the human spirit, something even the gods admired. In their twisted divine logic, they deemed our story an acceptable price, breaking our pacts. They were free. The nightmarish torment ceased, our sanity restored, our skills and passions returned, not as divine gifts, but as parts of our regained identities. The world cheered for us, our story serving as an inspiration. The victory was bittersweet. We had lost Rachel and James, but their sacrifice was not in vain. Our journey was over. We had tasted the divine, fought the gods, and emerged victorious. We were not just survivors, we were warriors. We had exposed Pishchabagov, defeated Thanos, and most importantly, reclaimed our lives. It was a chilling reminder of the price of success, the dangers of seeking shortcuts to our ambitions. As I write this account, I'm no longer the naive journalist intrigued by a mysterious restaurant. I'm a survivor, a warrior, a beacon of hope. The divine dishes and their haunting pacts will forever be a part of my life, a chilling chapter in my story. But as I pen down these words, I'm reminded of the strength of the human spirit, our ability to rise above the most horrifying circumstances, and the power of our stories. Because, in the end, our stories are what make us human, and sometimes they're powerful enough to appease the gods.